Hello friends, I'm Lisa Kapala. I have a pretty serious show to share with you today. We've all heard the words fraud, swindle, fleeced, scammed. Today we're going to talk about stopping the scam, and I have with me illustrious former police detective Lieutenant Chris Neville. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life to be here with us.
Nice to be here today, Lisa. Thank you.
So let's give the folks a little bit of background on why you're what I would consider the expert on scams. I know you've had a lot of experience in the world of law enforcement, and now you're kind of focusing on scams and other things. So let's give the folks a little bit of background about you.
Sure. Back when I retired from the police department about 8.5 years ago, I was already aware of a lot of the different types of scams that have gone on through the ages. A lot of transient people that would come in from out of the country, a lot of people that live locally here in the United States that travel the country as well. They're known as travelers. After I retired, I was out of it for a very short period of time, and right now I work for the state police. We do a lot of intelligence work, sharing information between different police agencies, mostly in Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire. One thing that's true about criminals is they don't stop at the town boundary, and they don't stop at the state boundary either. So the more that we can communicate with each other to share information, the more success we have in solving crimes, preventing crimes, and getting the people locked up that have to be locked up.
Okay, so somebody watching at home might be thinking, a whole show on scams, aren't we all savvy enough to avoid some of these? Why did you really feel it was important to talk about this?
There's been a proliferation of these types of crimes in all different directions, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching at home right now have experienced a lot of them. I get the phone calls myself on my cell phone telling me that my IRS number has been compromised and I'm going to lose all of my benefits, that my Social Security number was found in a car out in Arizona and they think it was involved in drug distribution out in Arizona, and if I want to stay out of jail or stay out of court, there's an easy way for us to take care of this. And, you know, a lot of people know it right away. They hang up or they don't even answer the phone. But there are people in our communities that do fall victim to this. I see it every single week as part of the job that I do now. All different types of scams. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it to the community, to let them know that there are ways to get around it, to prevent it from happening, and there are ways to investigate it even if it does happen to you.
All right, so we're going to show some of the, we call the top 5 scams, many other scams. But I think with the COVID and the pandemic, do you think because people are more isolated, we are more susceptible than we would have been otherwise? We're home more. What do you think about that?
Yep, you're answering the phone if you don't know who it is. You know, some people don't answer the phone at all, but you know, a lot of times, you know, especially elders are lonely. They're looking for somebody to talk to. Right. And that's one thing that's been consistent for a long time now, but with the COVID pandemic going on, you know, everybody's desperate for some kind of communication. So they're out there and they are more susceptible because as soon as they get somebody on the phone that sounds friendly and gets the right spiel, sometimes they're prone to fall for it.
So unfortunate. Let's talk about our first scam that we're going to actually show some footage of how it might look or sound if you got this call. The first one is the grandparents scam. That's what we're calling it. So let's set this clip up a little bit and then we'll take a look at it.
Sure. As far as the what we find, and it happens all over the country, is that a phone call rings and you hear the voice on the other end of the line, and it's usually a younger person that prompts either Grandma, Grammy, Nana, and there's a very brief conversation and then they lose contact with him, and the grandparent that ends up answering the phone is unsure of who it is, and they might say, is this Lisa? What's this going on? And I think what we're going to show here will show that, and it's very easy to hook these people in because grandparents are vulnerable when something comes up with their grandchildren.
All right, so let's take these beautiful pre-produced clips from WCTV that explains the grandparent scam. That's our first one.
Hello.
Hi, Grandma.
Hello. Hello, is this Karen?
Yes, Grandma, it is.
Oh, Karen, you sound funny. Are you all right, dear?
Oh, that's just because I'm upset, Gram. I'm in some trouble.
Oh, my. How can I help?
Well, I'm in Florida, and I was with a friend, and we got in some trouble with the law down here. And now I'm at the police station, and they won't let me go unless you can send money for bail. And Graham, we can't tell my parents. Please help me. Oh, wait. Here's Officer Jones. I'll put him on.
Oh, no.
Hello, this is Officer Jones. Your granddaughter got herself into a heap of trouble. Her friend's car was not insured, and there was alcohol in their car. I can let your granddaughter go if you can send bail money of $3,000.
But how can I get that kind of money to help my granddaughter, officer?
We can send a driver to pick up the money, but it will have to be in cash if we want to keep this quiet and get it done quickly.
Well, let me go to the bank this afternoon and see what I can do.
If you don't hurry, I'm going to have to charge your granddaughter in this case.
Well, I don't want that. Might there be another way, officer?
I'll tell you what. If you give me your bank information, we can take the money directly out of your account. But there is a gag order on this case, so you can't tell anyone. I'm trying to help your granddaughter out here.
Okay, well, let me get my information for you right away. And you'll send me a receipt, and you'll let Karen go.
Of course.
Graham, thank you so much. And thank you for keeping this between us. Love you.
Wow. Listening to that, I almost wanted to send the money. But I can see how that would alarm you. You're hearing it on the phone. We're listening here in the studio. You hear that on the phone, and there is that little generational gap between grandparents wanting to maybe kind of protect the children from telling the parents. This happens a lot?
Yeah, grandparents, and I'm almost at the point now where my grandkids are getting a little bit older. They become very, very protective of their grandchildren, and if a grandchild asks them to keep something confidential, more often than not, a lot of times they will.
Right.
And what they just described on the video there, there are times when you can be susceptible to being convinced to give up your bank account information.
Right.
More recently, there has been an increase of couriers being sent to the house to pick up cash. And
Gosh.
to the tune of, anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 at a whack. And there's also the same type of scam which would require them to put money into an envelope and ship it to Florida. There was a recent case that they arrested some people, they tied some people in down in the Miami area, that they would actually send a box with the magazine hollowed out with, maybe $5,000 or $10,000 worth of cash in there, and they would mail it to a vacant house or a vacant lot that they know was up for sale. And when they would track it by either UPS or first class mail with a receipt on it, so they know when the packages are being delivered, and the scammers on the other end would be waiting for the delivery, and as soon as the package gets dropped at the front door, they're picking it up and they're gone, and there's literally no way to trace them.
So listening to the video, I think what I heard was cash. That scared me. The first thing, if someone said cash, I would have. But when the grandma character asked for a receipt, I always feel like, oh, well, as long as I've got a receipt, I'm okay. But that's how they get you.
What we've seen lately, locally here in Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, they are sending couriers. And the couriers, they're not directly involved with the phone calls, the scams are usually a lot of times coming from either out of state or out of the country. But they are contracting with people locally who may be looking for an online job, and all you need is access to a vehicle. And they will tell these people, you will get a $400 or $500 payment if you pick up this package, whether it be in Wilmington or somewhere else.
So how much culpability is on the part of these drivers? I mean, really,
Well,
some of them might just be Uber or Lyft drivers who don't really know.
That's exactly
Some
right.
may be in on it.
Some of them are Uber and Lyft drivers, or last week in Londonderry, we had a case where an Uber driver dropped a guy off at a house. The guy who got picked up in Hudson, New Hampshire, he went over to Londonderry, he picked up a package, and fortunately that guy was arrested, but he actually hired the Uber driver to drive him to the house.
So it's a long chain of events.
Yeah.
So not always blame the driver, but we don't know.
Right. In this case here, the courier was involved because he regularly works with the people who are setting up the phone scams. He drove up from New Jersey, and I think he did a job out in the Keene area, and he came over to Londonderry, and I'm sure he probably hit in our immediate area too, but we just haven't received the phone calls yet.
Right. And of course, any crime committed against any individual is horrible, but especially against our senior population, that's particularly egregious to me.
Yeah. I mean, they are the most vulnerable in our society. We tend to be trusting. People my age or a little bit older, baby boomers, we grew up with a basic inherent trust in other people.
Right.
I think even, when
Grandma's
we were
not going to
younger,
be sitting down Googling this guy.
probably
No.
not. Even if she knew how, she probably wouldn't know where to go with it.
Right.
So I think it's very frustrating. These people have saved their entire lives to have enough money for their retirement years, and whether it be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and sometimes I've seen a lot more. Sometimes you lose an entire life savings because you keep on
Right.
getting duped into one increased payment after another.
And as we're going to see in some of these other clips we have, doesn't always matter the money. They will come down with you too.
Oh.
If they start with 10 grand, because they obviously don't, some of these criminals don't have a profile of your financial
That's correct.
profile. So they don't know how much to ask for. So sometimes they're going to start with a high amount and go lower, which
Right.
brings us to transient criminals. That's our second clip. I've experienced this. This actually happened to me. So let's talk a little bit about how that works. You're out on a sunny day and you're in your yard, and what happens?
Right. Well, a lot of times the transient criminals, they could be locally based from the United States. A lot of them come in from out of the country, again. And what they'll do is they target neighborhoods that they see things that are just a little bit out of, out of array to a degree.
Right.
Could be a senior citizen working in a garden. You drive by and you see exactly who they are. And you can tell that there are no swings or bicycles in the yard, so it's a senior's house. Could be that they live alone, and in a lot of cases you'll engage them in some kind of conversation about, hey, your chimney looks like it's tipped a little bit. It looks like it needs some work. It could be a driveway that has to be repaved or resealed. There are people that transfer in from out of the country, especially in. I'm of Irish heritage. We have Irish and English travelers that come
Right.
over here every year. Those are visa waiver countries that have reciprocal agreements with the United States, so they can come here anytime they want. They're not supposed to work to make money because they don't pay Social Security taxes and things like that. But they know how to target certain types of individuals. They'll look for a little bit of a house that's run down,
Right.
that needs obvious work, and they'll make an incredible offer to them to try to, get them to maybe take advantage of some service that they provide, whether it be
Right.
woodworking or masonry or something like that.
Yes, and as we're going to take a look at this clip in a moment, they know how to get you. They know how to
do.
make you feel like you should keep up with your neighbors. They've done their research, usually,
Yeah.
slight research, before they come to your home. They've kind of canvassed the neighborhood, I guess, is what you folks would
Sure.
use in the terminology, right?
Yeah.
So let's take a look at some of what a transient criminal scam might look like. I'll bet many of us have experienced
I'll
this.
bet.
Hello, can I help you?
Hi there, I'm Mike of Mike's Paving. See my guy in the truck there?
Oh, yes, I see him. What can I do for you guys?
Well, actually, it's what we can do for you.
Oh,
We saw that your driveway could use a little paving, and we just happened to be in the area and have a little extra hot top left over from a job 2 streets away.
really?
Yeah, and if it doesn't get used, it just gets wasted. So, we'd like to help you out, offering to pave your driveway for just $1,000 cash. And my guys work fast, and we've been in business for 20 years. But if we don't act fast, then the hot top's just going to get wasted. I mean, I guess we can go ask your neighbor over there.
Well, okay. And you'll do the job right now?
Sure.
Let me think about it, and I'll ask my husband.
Yeah, like I said, we have to do this right now. Or I can just go ask someone else, and you'll lose out on the deal.
Well, okay. How about 500? That's all I have at home right now.
Well, since you're such a nice lady, we'll take the deal. Boy, you drive a hard bargain.
Wow.
She's
Hit
such-
you right where you live.
She's such a nice lady. Why
You're
wouldn't
such
you
a
want to give
nice
him all the money you
lady.
have in the house?
He's going to cut you a deal. But that plays into our natural inclination that we want to get the best deal, that we don't want to be hornswoggled.
Yeah.
That criminal totally fed into all of that. And most of these folks, charming. Super charming.
You're right. And what you have to be very careful, most legitimate contractors do not go door to door selling their product. They advertise it, could be in the phone book, they could be advertising it online, they could be putting on a billboard, they could even put a sign up somewhere. It's kind of imperative that you do a little bit of research yourself before you
Right.
fall victim to something like this. Now,
Right.
this guy here, he started at $1,000. It's not uncommon to start even lower than that. And, in this case here, she said, I only have $500. Well, you drive a hard bargain. And what they'll do is, if they have asphalt in their truck, it's because they are what we refer to in the trade as gypsy pavers. They will go around anywhere they think they can get a deal. In a lot of cases, they don't have all the right equipment to do the job. They'll put a thin coat of asphalt on, and then they'll roll it, or they'll tamp it down. They won't even have a roller. They'll use a tamping tool to put it down, and they'll be out of your neighborhood. It'll be a job that will not last much more than a couple of months, and you'll be out whatever money you end up giving them.
Right. And I think the consumer in that case, in your mind, when you're hearing that, I got a deal.
Yeah.
I'm proud of myself, which makes it so insidious, that I got this great deal. And they do the work, because I did a little research too. They usually do the work, but it's shoddy.
Yeah.
But you don't know that until they're long gone.
And a lot of times, Lisa, they'll come out, they'll be a lot more involved in the job that they're doing. So even though they may have quoted this woman given her for $500, a lot of times they'll offer a quote of, say, $30 a foot. And, if you have a 20-foot driveway, $30 a foot, you're going to pay $600. That sounds great. And then when the job is all done, they'll say, no, you misunderstood. It was $20 a square foot.
Ah.
So now you multiply 8 foot wide by,
Sure.
20
Or,
feet long.
hey, this doesn't look perfect. Well, if you want the extra special deal of the century,
Yeah.
it's going to be more cash is usually the
Right.
key.
We've had cases in Wilmington that we've investigated back when I was in the job, where they would actually drive the senior to the bank to take money out.
How nice of them.
Yeah, but it's always at an inflated price, and the job quality is always substandard. And again, it's very, very difficult. You might get a photograph of them from being at the bank or something, but a lot of times, once these people leave the neighborhood, they're very hard
Yeah,
to
and
track
I would
down.
imagine too, if you were to try litigation, they did provide a service. It'd be very difficult, I would imagine, to
Right.
to prosecute that.
It would be more of a small claims case in court,
and then more trouble than it's worth, and embarrassment,
sometimes.
which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
So the next one on the top hit parade here is the Social Security scam. This has happened to me too. I've gotten those calls too. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, the way they preface the phone call, and I'm sure most people at home have probably also, if you have a cell phone, you probably get it on your cell phone or even your home phone when you pick up the voice message, and they'll say, we found some kind of controversy or some kind of problem with your Social Security number, and we are going to stop giving you any Social Security benefits because your number has been involved in some kind of a drug transaction out of state, or it's involved in some other kind of illicit activity.
The people who called me, and it's automated sounding, and it says, this is the Social Security office. Your Social Security number has been compromised. To get your Social Security number back. Now, my Social Security number, I have an S number now for some stuff, but I'm from the 70s, 80s. My Social Security number is on a lot of stuff. Probably
Right.
shouldn't be, but it is. So my first thought was, uh-oh, what do I do now?
The reality
and then
is-
it's call this number.
Yeah, they don't really have your Social Security number. What they're doing is they're just doing a robocall. They hit the button, and as soon as they get somebody on the line, they hit the button to give the recording, and then if somebody starts responding to them, they will get on the line and go through the whole spiel about how the number's been compromised.
What I've noticed too is when I try to call these numbers back, there's no callback. It's
That's
either, you can't get a person. So usually if they can't get you in that moment, that's a lost leader for them, so they just
Yeah.
go on to the next number. How are they getting all of these phone numbers?
You just sit in front of a telephone, and these auto dialers will go into a whole community,
Wow.
and they could send out 5,000 phone calls a day. It only is going to take them one or two to be successful, that they've made their day's pay. And I'm sure in a lot of cases they get more than one or two successful
Right,
hits.
they wouldn't be doing it if it
Yeah.
wasn't lucrative. Let's take a look at the Social Security scam.
Hello? Hello?
This is an official call from the Social Security office. Please do not hang up. Please be advised that your Social Security number is currently locked and has been used in a fraud ring. Your Social Security number will remain locked until action is taken. To clear this record of fraudulent transactions immediately and continue to receive benefits and keep your Social Security number, please purchase $3,000 in Target or Best Buy gift cards. You can purchase these cards online or in person. Please call this number immediately and be ready to provide the PIN and card numbers and authorization number on the card. Your immediate attention is needed.
Wow. So if I have to say, when they called me, it was just call this number. They didn't say go buy Bed Bath & Beyond gift cards. Gee, that would kind of tick me a little bit on that, but people are falling prey to this. I can't believe it.
People at home are probably smiling and say, I will never fall for this, but there are people that do fall for it. If you are solicited by phone to purchase gift cards for any reason whatsoever,
Right.
it's a scam. Don't do it. I mean,
Right.
it can be associated with any of the things that we have seen on the videos or that we're about to see. Anybody that's trying to get you to purchase things on the purchase gift cards in a store and then to provide those numbers over the phone, they are gone within minutes. Even if you call the police right after you give them the number, it's going to take some time to be able to cancel those cards out, and those cards will be sold off to somebody across the country who will go into, it could be again a Target, a Best Buy, an Apple store, any
Sell them to
retailer.
a third party, too.
Well, again, they could sell them to a
Sure.
third party, but they are going to work quick, and I've seen them as quick as 15 minutes from the time that those gift cards numbers are being given out, that they're being redeemed someplace else across the country. And a lot of times we'll come up with photographs of the individuals that are purchasing the goods, but they're almost impossible to identify. And today, everybody is wearing a mask.
Right.
That makes them even more difficult to
Right,
identify.
Right, so
So-
not good.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that sounds legitimate and it sounds very official.
Yeah.
But again, if they're telling you to buy gift cards for any reason, it's a fraud.
You know, I've also seen emails that have the logo of Amazon or Discover
Mm-hmm.
in there, and it is said, your account is locked. Please give us such and such information.
Right.
And they use the logo, so it looks legit. So if you're tired or busy or stuff's going on and you're just surfing through your emails and you see that, you could easily fall victim to that as well. Because for me, if it says official document and it's got the logo, but if you read further down, I've checked with Discover, they don't do that. I've
Right.
checked with Amazon, they don't do that. But that requires more work on the victim's part, and most of us, frankly, don't have the time for that.
Right. I mean, if you look at the address, so they call the URL
Right.
code at the top, a lot of times you can read into it. If it says Amazon@gmail.com, it's a fraud.
Right.
You know, if it's some, maybe affiliate of Amazon where it has Amazon.com as part of their email address, it might be legitimate. But something like this, you really want to err on the side of caution. A lot of these people are out there all the time.
And I have heard anybody from the government is going to usually contact you by mail.
That's correct.
So if you get a phone call like that, that should be a red flag immediately to you. And if there's no return phone number, that should be another red flag to you.
A lot of times they will use what they call spoofed phone numbers. I don't know if we'll get to that today, but there are machines out there that you can get on the internet that you can make it look like you're getting a phone call from the White House or the Social Security Administration. So when that call comes in on your caller ID, whether it be in your phone or on your television, if it populates on your television screen, it looks like it's a legitimate number. And you may pick it up and they will engage you on the phone at that point, but then they will give you another number to call back if they want to verify something else or try to push the scam a little
Right.
bit further. So, just be very cautious and be aware that these things are out there.
Right. And with many of us being home and some extra time to make these calls, it makes us more susceptible to that. So let's take a look at the computer virus scam shortly. Tell us a little bit about that. Set up that clip.
Well, as you mentioned, a lot of times you'll get this little pop-up that shows up on your computer screen. Sometimes they're not really solicited, but you might click on an email link and something will come up that your computer is locked, and if you want to get it unlocked, you have to click on whatever the box is. And that will connect you with some kind of a scammer, usually not in the United States, and they will tell you that this is Apple. In a lot of cases, it's Apple service or Apple
I got
troubleshooting.
one from Microsoft.
Okay.
And it actually locked my computer. I had to actually have an expert come and unlock it from this, which would have made me believe it was real had I not known better.
Yeah, and I think sometimes they find ways to, cause you to click on something that does lock your computer. But it's the same type of a thing. They will say that, oh, we're sorry, it's going to cost you $100 or $200. And once you pay the $100 or $200, they'll go, oh, I accidentally put an extra 2 zeros into the payment. So we're going to reimburse you that. But the only way I can reimburse you for all the money that you're getting back is for you to send me another $6,000 so the books will balance.
Wow.
And you can look up a lot of this stuff online yourself. There are, scam sites out there where you can see how these things are perpetrated. And it's like they just throw the fishing rod out there, the fishing line, and they hook you in. And you say, well, I'm going to get my money back. Oh, yeah, just give me your account number, and I will take care of it all. And by the next time, a lot of times they'll go in, and if you have a checking account and you have a savings account, and you might have a third account, all with the same bank, with the same account number, they will go in and actually manipulate your funds so you don't see it coming out of your savings account. It looks like it's going into your checking account, but what they've actually done is just a transfer of your own funds into the checking account, and then there's more money disappearing.
Right. The one that happened to me, it actually said to me, stop, you're being recorded by the government. And it actually showed my face while it was recording, like it had a picture of me. I was petrified that someone was going to come and break down the door.
Technology is incredible,
it's beautiful, except, when it's being used poorly. I had to actually take a deep breath because, I respect authority, and I was very nervous about it. It did lock my computer, and I had to have it fixed.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder if people are dabbling into areas or different sites that might be a speck questionable, and this happens to them, they're not going to report that.
Yeah, I've seen recently, there have been several different scams that have come across the phone where they actually threaten people and say, well, I'm going to send this to everybody on your contact list.
Right.
And it's going to be suggestive that you went into a pornography site.
Right,
And
that's what I was trying to
like
get
that.
at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they, if you're looking in an area that's a little bit questionable, so they're going to use that to their advantage.
Right.
And try to embarrass you into paying them, which I think is called blackmail.
It's
right?
exactly what it is. Yeah.
Or extortion.
Exactly.
Which are both crimes.
Yep.
Yes.
They are. Now the problem is trying to find out where they are. And again, as I mentioned, a lot of times these are coming from outside of the country, and the legwork that would be entailed in trying to track it all down, it's not worth it.
And probably not easy either. Because
it's almost impossible.
They can move, and they don't have. It's not like Joe sitting behind the computer.
Right.
He's got the URL or the IP address or what have you, and they just move on.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at that virus video.
Stop. Your computer has been affected by a virus and is locked. We are monitoring your computer remotely. You must call 555-1111 immediately to unlock your computer for a fee. Our representative will help you unlock your computer. Please have your credit card or bank card information ready so that we may resolve this issue immediately.
Super scary when it happens to you, especially our computers. Our computers are like an extension of ourselves, and a lot of that is private surfing. Very, very scary.
Yeah, and just the fact that they want to get your access to your credit card number, I mean, that gives them or your bank account number, it gives them an open season to manipulate as much as they can inside your own accounts.
And to set up fake charge accounts in your name and other stuff. Once they get that information, it's not just your bank account. You don't get those bills for months later until they've set up these fake charges.
Right, and now you all have all the headaches. Even though you may not be responsible for all of the monetary losses, you have the headaches of trying to clear your name, straighten out your credit reporting, things like that.
And who pays ultimately? All of us.
We all pay because the banks may eat a certain amount of the charges, but again, that's why our interest rates are so high on loans, but not much coming back in the way of trying to gain interest on your accounts.
Right. Okay, number 5, my favorite on the hit parade, the dating ID scam. So many of us are trying to connect in so many ways, different than in the olden days, I like to say, right? Yeah. And especially now with the pandemic, more of us are searching out connection through online. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know identity fraud, everybody pretty much knows what that is, but this is a little different.
The younger generation is probably not quite as susceptible to a lot of the online dating because they don't have access to the funds that older people have. But what I've seen is that older people have a tendency, especially if you've lost a spouse or you're you could be divorced, or you're getting up there in age and you're looking for a connection with somebody, and you can't go into a bar now. You can't really get a chance to meet anybody unless it's through a friend. So a lot of people are falling back on these online dating sites.
Sure.
And if you start clicking on certain links, you will get solicited by the most handsome men and beautiful women that you can imagine that just want to spend quality time online with you.
Right.
And I've seen these going on for at least 10 years now. And what a lot of times these scammers will do is they will get a magazine, and they will take a beautiful picture of an actor or some model,
Right.
and they will send photographs to you indicating that this is them.
Sure.
And they are working on either an offshore oil rig, or working out of the country in Africa on a special project, or a government installation on a special, a top secret project. And I can't tell you exactly what I'm doing, but I'm looking for companionship as well. So
Right.
let's communicate online, and I'll send you some pictures of things that I've been doing. You send me pictures of you. And I've been saving my money for years, and I can't wait to really spend some time with you so I can share the money that I've accumulated over the years.
So easy to
Yeah.
get connected that way. I can say that the connection online almost feels as real as in person. And I
Yeah.
know sometimes they don't do voice-to-voice contact because sometimes some of these folks are not American, so the accent might throw off
Exactly,
the
yep.
person that's emailing. And sometimes too, the grammar will tell me immediately, the way we do our verbiage or the order of the way
Yep.
we put words is different than other countries. So sometimes that would throw me off. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking for true love and you're really lonely,
Yeah.
it's easy to fall for that.
Yeah, for the people that are English majors, it's a dead giveaway. You know exactly what it is when you get it. I think we've also talked in the past about you get the letter from
Your
Great
cousin
Britain.
in Nigeria.
that, we've inherited $5 million or
Right.
6 million pounds, and I just want to share it with you. And it's kind of like
Right.
you start reading the language, and it's clearly not the King's English, and it's not
Right.
American English. It's from someplace else. So I mean, it's not exactly the same as the scam that we just described here.
Right.
But if you are getting solicited and you get these, again, it seems too good to be true. It probably is.
Right.
And if you see this beautiful woman or a handsome man that's only looking to connect with you online, until you see them on FaceTime or you meet them in person,
Right.
I wouldn't trust it at all.
So the thing is, I'm seeing here, what's going on is they're pulling at your heartstrings.
You're
and
lonely.
so your mind
Yeah.
disconnects. And you just go with what your heart says.
Yes.
And that's how they get you.
Yeah.
Because if you really stepped back and looked at it, you would see it for
Mm-hmm.
what it was. But it's also painful when you realize you've been scammed.
Yeah,
too.
it's painful, and the other thing that we'll touch on is that people are embarrassed about it,
Yes.
and they're very reluctant to admit it. So sometimes even once the scam has been uncovered, or
Right.
you suspect that there's something going on here, it's very hard to let go because you think you've developed a bond with this person, and that you still want to hope that there's something
Right.
legitimate here.
But you have developed a bond because I've watched a
Yeah.
lot of these shows on this catfishing and things like that. You do develop a bond.
Yeah.
It's not real for them, but it feels that way for you.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it hard. Let's take a look at this one, and then we'll give you some tips for prevention.
Hi there. I was worried. It's been a few days since we talked.
Well, things have been crazy here in the oil rig, and I don't want to trouble you, but it looks like I won't be able to come to the States and start our dream life together as we've planned all these months.
Oh no. What's happened? I thought you were coming to meet me next month.
I would love to, but my boss is not paying us. He says the company money is tied up and it could be months before I get any money. I can't get to my bank because, of course, I have plenty of money there.
Well, how much money are we talking about to get you out of there and here to me?
Oh, I couldn't let you do that. I'll just wait another 2 months and see what happens. I just don't know where I'll stay because now that this job is done, we have to leave. I'll figure something out. Maybe I can stay on the rig a little longer and try to talk to the company.
Well, I don't want you to do that. How much do you think you'll need?
Well, to fly to my home and take care of my bank account, and then come to you so we can start our lives, about $10,000. But just until I can return it to you, my darling, so we can be together forever.
Oh, that kills me. Kills me.
Yeah, well,
Because it sounds, because the criminal is smart enough to say, no, I'll fix it myself. So they let you offer. Now, in the legal world, does that make you culpable because you've actually said yes?
it probably does, but once again, these things are out of the country, so it's very, very difficult. That's exactly, I mean, what was portrayed there is exactly how these scams go down. And if you think that these relationships have gone on for sometimes 2, 3, 4 months at a time, and they're building it all the time. And, when the push comes to shove and it's like, oh, we were all set. A month from now, we're going to be all set and start our lives together. It's heartbreaking for the person on the other end. And they'll do almost anything. Now, this talked about $10,000. I've seen it as much as $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And it'll be like, well, send it to this person overseas and they will make sure it gets into my bank account because I can't take it here.
Right.
And once you send it, and I will say that a lot of these are going to Nigeria and Ghana over in Africa. Some have been going to the United Kingdom.
That's a funnel for another. We don't really know where it goes.
Exactly right. And it's like, again, the same thing that we talked about couriers earlier. They're sitting at home and it's like, okay, get this package in. I'm going to get a package with $10,000 in it, deposit it. I'm going to send it to this guy and he's going to pay me $200 so I get the package in. So I'm a middleman. Culpable, yeah, you're kind of culpable, but most countries, most municipalities, they don't look at that as a real serious crime because the intent is not there to defraud that individual person. They're just a middle person.
And then we get into international law and computer law, and by the time you funnel it all down,
I know that about 2 years ago, there was a big takedown in India. They have what we call warehouses where these things, or boiler rooms, where these things take place all day long, and they'll hit you up on all of these scams that we've talked about, especially the ones that are phone-based. And I think they arrested 50 people, and they were involved in like tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in losses, most of it targeting the United States. The greatest country in the world is also the greatest suckers in the world, unfortunately. And, you have to, if you don't get them ahead of time, before you get scammed, a lot of times it's too late.
And I see in this particular scam we were talking about, I can imagine the guy saying if the woman wouldn't send the money, or reverse, well, you don't really care about me then, because they prey on that emotional. So I think that's the key, the emotional. Step back from it, maybe. So let's talk about prevention. How can I prevent myself from being a victim of these things?
Well, you have to be big enough to admit that maybe you're making a mistake. Don't be afraid to ask friends, family members for some advice on some of these things. If you think they're in the middle of a scam, that you maybe have already lost some money, reach out to the police department. The police department has trained investigators. Again, we were doing it when I was working, up 8 more years ago. There are people down there right now, detectives, who will do a follow-up with you and to try to get to the bottom. They can do internet searches. I mean, technology today has taken off so much that I don't even understand. But if you get somebody that's really, computer proficient, they can find out what's going on fairly easily. You might even be able to go into the internet and find the exact type of scam that you are being victimized on. We talked about the oil rig. I mean, if you do just a Google search on online oil rig scam, you will see all of these things laid out, exactly the way we've talked about this morning.
Okay, and let's also say, if your gut tells you something's not right, trust that.
Yeah, it probably
And the urgency thing, maybe step back for
Yeah.
20 minutes or so and just take another look at it.
Yeah.
You know?
We talked earlier about the gag order, that the judge has slept a gag order on the grandchild in jail. If you hear the term gag order used for anything, it's a fraud. It's a scam. Gag order has nothing to do with anything that's ongoing. There could be a gag order on an ongoing criminal case that's been high profile for years and years, but there is nothing that you or I are ever going to deal with that involves a gag order.
These are buzzwords that the criminals know
Exactly.
will play again on our emotions.
Yeah.
So what about if we're in the middle of a scam? I'm on the phone and I realize it. What should I do? Obviously hang up, but is there more? Should I try to say, I know you're a scammer, or what?
Yeah,
Should I try to engage, keep them on longer? What?
You know, you could, I'm just throwing this out there, telling them that you know it's a scammer, that just gives the next
just hang up.
victim an opportunity to get a phone call. Because as soon as you hang up from them and they realize that you're not going to fall for it, they're just going to go to their Rolodex, they're going to hit the button, and the next phone number pops up, and they try the same scam. And you have to remember, this is their job. They do it every day, sometimes 5, 7 days a week. That's their livelihood. So they get very good at it. They get very good at eliciting information from you, you know, as far as who your family members are and things like that.
Right.
So if you think that you're in the middle of it and you have an opportunity to step back a little bit, you might say something like, listen, I got to go to the bathroom. Hold on one sec, I'll be right back. Put the phone down and either find somebody else or call the police department, try to get some clarity and say, I have this guy on the other line.
Right.
Or say, you know, I got to call you back, I have to go to the bathroom, or, you know, wait a minute, you know, my sink is overflowing, I have to put the phone down. Make up something real quick that you're going to have to take a minute. A lot of times these people, if you're going to the bank to get funds or you're going to a store to get gift cards, they will tell you, stay on the line. I don't want to lose contact with you, because they know if you stay on the line,
Right.
you can't reach out for help.
got
So
you.
you have to try to find a way to disengage from the phone call temporarily while you can get some advice on what's going
Okay.
on.
So what do I do if I know I'm a victim? If I know that?
If you've already
For
been
sure.
victimized, the best thing to do is notify the local police agency. Again, they're the ones that are trained. Most detectives especially are familiar with what the scams are now. They know some of the resources that you can reach out to try to either put an end to it or maybe to try to follow up to investigate it. Again, if it's gone out of the country, the likelihood of coming to a successful conclusion where you get your money back, very, very unlikely. A lot of the grandchild stuff right now is coming out of Canada. We've traced, you know, what we think is a group out of Canada, but they're sending the phone calls through United States exchanges, so you wouldn't know that.
So me as a victim reporting it, am I really helping others by reporting it?
I-
Or is it just a drop in the proverbial scam bucket?
It helps others to not be scammed. I think if you report it, and if we put it in the local paper that a victim, they're not going to tell, you know, anybody in the newspaper what the name is of the scam victim. But if you say he was a victim of a dating scam, or he's a
Right.
victim of an IRS scam where they thought their IRS number was compromised, if they see that in the paper, they may say, wait a minute, I just got that same phone call yesterday. Or if they might see it next week and say, this sounds like exactly what was in the paper last week. And the more opportunity we have to make it public so that other people see it, the more likelihood we can put a stop to it.
Okay. So what if I'm a store owner, and
Mm-hmm.
we've heard CVS and other, you know, stores in the community, banks even, have seen little old ladies, little old men coming in, withdrawing oodles and oodles of money that they never had before, or buying tons of gift cards. And those folks have actually pulled those people gently aside and
Right.
said, hey, you know, is this right? Why are you doing this? How much of that should we be doing? And is it okay if we do that?
I think it's very important to do it, Lisa, because there are ways you can discreetly engage somebody and say, oh man, you know, again, with the holiday season coming up where we are
Right.
right now,
Right.
there are opportunities where you are going to get gift cards for family members. And so it's okay to engage and say, you know, boy, you know, a lot of gift cards going out for family members, but I also heard there's a lot of scams where people are being called on the phone to buy $500 gift cards for some of the big retailers, especially, you know,
Right.
Best Buy and Target and the Apple Store and probably the Microsoft Store. And again, once these people are engaged, you know, it might cause them to think back and say, okay, wait a minute, maybe this isn't right. I just saw one last week where exactly what you said. One of the bank managers, they had already taken out some money, and they'd gone back to try to get another $18,000 out of the bank, and the bank teller just knew something wasn't right. So they saved the woman from losing $18,000, but they lost out, I think it was on $8,000 or $10,000 on the
Right.
initial scam. But
Right.
you know, the more information we get out there for these scams, the more likelihood that other people will not be victimized.
Right. And so we also talked about, before we started the show, about the generations we're in. You called it the sandwich generation, where, you know, you've got kids, they have children, which are your grandkids. You're independent. Everybody wants to be independent. How much
Right.
checking on our elders or our aunts and uncles or our neighbors should we be doing? And how
Yeah.
do we do that gently?
Sometimes it's a tough thing to do. I know that there are family members that, like I'm in my late 60s now. If I was going to try to tell my dad years ago how to manage his funds, he'd probably be kind of skeptical about that. He'd think, oh, you just want to save it for your inheritance. It's got nothing to do with that. But, you want to make sure that they feel comfortable talking. Put these ideas into their heads. If they don't see this on the local cable access show, say, I heard about this scam where somebody thought their grandchild was in jail.
Right.
If my grandchild is in jail, we have to know about it. We don't want,
So don't make
want you
them
keeping
wrong.
yourself.
I think the key is to not make them feel like they're doing something wrong or they're not capable.
Right.
Maybe just presenting it as, maybe even saying, watch this show.
Yeah.
So
There
we
you
can
go.
open up a conversation about, a dialogue about it, so that
Yeah.
prevention is really
Yeah.
the key. Prevention is the key.
There are always people out there looking to take your money, as we talked earlier. An older generation tends to be more trusting. Younger people are more skeptical about some of these things here.
Right.
But unless you let the older people know that these things are going on out there, to be wary of them, they're
Right.
probably not going to think about it. They're not going to listen to the 15-year-old kid from high school talk about scams. But if you're 50, 60 years old and your parents are older or your neighbors are older, talk to them about it. Just let them know that these things are going on, so that if you do get the phone call or somebody comes to your door and wants to pave your driveway or seal coat your driveway for a great price that's unbelievable, it's probably a scam.
Right. And I know that organizations, police stations and other organizations do go to senior centers and other places
Right.
to do talks about this very thing. So we hope this program can be used for that. But there are agencies that will come out and actually give talks on this to kind of broach the subject and make it a little easier for families.
There are. I know that the Wilmington detectives have been up to the senior center, but they can't go up there now because of the current pandemic.
Right.
But I'm sure there are people that have talked to them in the past and will continue to talk to them in the future. But, there's always a transition. People are always coming and going. As the baby boomers grow up, we're all going to be getting into our 60s, 70s, and, low 80s pretty soon.
Right.
You have new people getting involved in these types of events around town. You just
Right.
got to keep
So
the word out there.
you've seen a lot of sad, tragic,
Yeah.
horrific things, and you've heard them. How do you feel people can go about healing when this has happened to them? First, they have to talk about it. I think that's
Yeah.
the first thing. How do you feel victims heal after something like
Yeah.
this? The money's gone, you've been scammed, you're embarrassed.
Yeah.
How do you cope?
I can't really give you any advice on how to heal if there's no real support group that I'm aware of for people who have been scammed.
Right.
But you just have to make sure you're aware that if something happens in the future, you don't fall victim to it again. And again, it may not be the exact same type of scam. I think one thing we talked about is that if you do reach out to the police department and you're working on trying to recoup some funds, the scammers know that the police in some cases do get involved. And it could be like the hang-up phone call. You know something's going on, you hang up. So now you will get a phone call from Officer Jones and say, hi, I'm from the police department. We know who was doing that to you, and we're going to try to get them locked up. But to do that, we need your cooperation. We need you to go to the bank and
Oh, so
take
a
out
scam
some
on
more.
top of a scam.
They'll do a scam pretending that they're a police officer or involved in the FBI or the Secret Service or something, and they will get them to go to the bank again and say, I'm working with the police. So
Wow.
again, you might think that, oh, this is how I'm going to get my, the bite at the apple. And what it is, it's another scam to try to get more money out of them.
So then maybe the best thing, like with most things, is tell someone in authority so that you can help so the next person doesn't have to go
Yeah.
through that.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, the ultimate reality is that's exactly how it is. Preventing somebody else from getting scammed. It's not going to make you feel any better to know that the next person on the phone call ended up losing $10,000 just like you did. If you
Right.
can stop it and prevent somebody else. I know I get the phone calls, different types. If somebody says, hey, I want to talk to you about something, hold on one sec, I'll be right there, or I'm going to get him for you. Put them on hold, waste their time. Find a way to waste their time so they're not wasting your time.
How many perpetrators do you folks get from people making them wait and we're not tracing numbers like we see on TV
No.
and
Yeah.
running out and getting the guys. That's not really happening.
can't be
so
done.
prevention is really, really the crux of it.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
on a kidnapping, a legitimate kidnapping, if the police are there waiting, you might be able to trace a number quick enough to find somebody on the other end of the phone.
Right.
But with the proliferation of cell phones now, a lot of times we don't know where they are. You can narrow them down to within a quarter of a mile. Well, how many people are using a phone?
Right.
You know,
Right.
who are you going to pick out?
But I think television teaches us the
Yeah,
sense that, oh, we'll get the guy if we can trace the number, but that's not
Yeah, don't
really.
believe everything you see on TV.
This is
In an
true.
hour, they package up a crime in a court case. That doesn't happen.
Right. Any final thoughts, Chris, that you would like to share with the community? Obviously, if something's going on, talk to your local police station, whatever town you may be in. We're in Wilmington, but talk to them and reach out to friends and family and tell them what's going on. But what else?
Yeah, we're all in communication in law enforcement. I mean, I work pretty regularly with the Secret Service and a lot of these grandparent ones that are going across the country. If the more people that are aware of what's going on makes it better for all of us to prevent it from happening to other people.
Okay.
We had a lot of success back in the spring, end of winter last year into the spring with exactly what we've been talking about on the grandparent scams. And we arrested maybe 4 or 5 or 6 different couriers. Some of those cases are still pending. One of our issues right now is the courts are still closed. We're not having any trials.
Right.
So all of these people, we don't want them in jail where they're going to be sick. The couriers are kind of, they're somewhere in the middle. We don't know how to treat them as criminals because they're being
middle
duped
guy.
themselves. Exactly right. So my best advice is let the police know if you are being targeted. You know, are we going to solve everyone? No, we're not. We don't have the capacity to do that. We don't have the jail space to do it.
Right.
But if you can prevent somebody else from getting scammed, there will be those that we pick off every now and again, and they're very, very satisfying. You know, you make their life miserable, and in some cases they do roll over. I mean, it's like the drug dealer, you know, you don't want to just get the low-level dealer, you want to get the high-level
right.
guy. You may get the low-level guy now, and you work them to try to get the high-level people that are managing these operations.
Right. Do you ever feel frustrated knowing that, okay, maybe the grandparent scam will eliminate that one, but they'll just come up with another way?
They will, yeah.
So prevention is really the best
Yeah.
route.
Awareness, and again, if you are related to a senior citizen who is in their 70s or 80s, especially if you start to see them deteriorate mentally, you know, where they're not managing their own checkbook very well, or they're going out and buying things unnecessarily, or they have packages being delivered from Amazon every single day for stuff that they don't need, have a conversation with those folks and try to make them aware of some of these things that are going
Yeah,
on.
open a dialogue and don't make them wrong about it because we all
Yeah.
make mistakes. We can
Right, we
all,
do.
We can all fall victim to it. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter who you are, right?
That's
Thank you
right.
so much, Chris, for taking your time to be with us and talk about this important topic.
Thank you, Lisa. It's nice to be here, and hopefully we help somebody else.
Yes. And thank you so much for watching. If you need more information about this, you can contact your local police station. They should be able to help you out. And again, this is Lisa Kapala for WCTV. Let's hope we can stop the scams.